I was told that my blood was so low in iron. It was so bad that I was a few months away from organ failure. And nobody had picked that up.
Today I'm talking to Nerita, who is an international educator of over 10 years. She's going to be sharing her journey through heavy periods, the discovery of fibroids, fighting to get a hysterectomy, and now dealing with the challenges of perimenopause.
Nerita, hello, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Emma. Thank you for having me.
So, today you are joining me to talk about your journey. You have been through a lot, starting with quite sort of heavy and irregular periods as you were growing up. You've dealt with also fibroids, which ultimately led to having a hysterectomy, and now you're navigating perimenopause. So I just want to take it back to the start, basically. So you started your periods at age 14, is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Age 14, okay. So what were these periods like for you back then?
I felt that I was like the last person to get my period in my friend group, and I had all the information. So I was literally just anxiously waiting for this to get, to come on. So when I started, it was regular, it was normal, it was what was expected. I didn't have any cramps, I didn't have any of it was inconvenient, but there was no severe pain, nothing that concerned me in any way until in my teens. It was quite good. As I said, the only thing for me was the inconvenience of it. And only in my 20s did I start to notice more of a change, or I had to focus more about that time of the month. And I had to focus more on what my body was doing and how I was feeling.
I see. So nothing out of the ordinary, sort of relatively okay period. And you said things started to sort of change in your 20s. You sort of noticed, yeah, things were changing. Can you just talk us through that period? What happened?
Well, I noticed that my periods were heavier. I didn't know they were heavier, though. I would have blood clots, and I thought they were the usual. I thought it was normal. This is what happens, especially when you speak with friends about, the different things that everyone goes through when they're menstruating. Everyone seemed to have some kind of issue or the other. Cramps was a big thing, not so much for me, but for a lot of my friends. And so when you'd speak with friends about things like blood clots, the response was, yeah, it happens, it's normal, it is what it is. So I went through most of my 20s with irregular periods. I would have it one month, not have it the next month, not really being too concerned about it. I was also diagnosed with anemia very early in life. I think when I was about 10, 9 or 10. So that was something that always came into play for me, that, whenever I'd go to a doctor, I'd speak to my friends, they'd say, yeah, but you're anemic, so your period is never going to be regular. I had the period apps at that point. I would have little books where I'd write down my start date and my end date so I could predict, but it was never on the turn. It was never like, okay, so today's the first, I'm going to get my period. I could never have like a confirmed prediction. But I was told that that was regular, in inverted commas, that was normal, and that was what it was like. I didn't realize that I was going through anything more than just a basic, cycle as such.
Well, okay, so yeah, so with in terms of speaking to friends, they were experiencing of the same things, blood clots. You were diagnosed with anemia at quite a young age, and
Yeah.
you were just sort of told that, irregular periods, it's just normal. It's part of being a woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see. Okay, so you didn't really question, like there was no need to sort of question anything rightly, because if everyone's, experiencing the same things, then everything is normal. So it was, because we've had a little chat beforehand. You mentioned it was in your sort of 30s that things started to become a little bit more intense, to the point where you were sort of cancelling plans, and you'd have to sort of stay in bed for maybe 1 or 2 days just because the pain got so intense. Can you tell us about what
Yeah,
happened?
like just rewinding a little bit back to my 20s, I
Mm,
didn't really feel any type of pain or anything, but I did get pregnant when I was 27.
mhm.
And my first reaction was, what? How? Because I was married since the age of 21, and I wasn't really being the most protective of falling pregnant, and nothing ever happened. It would be late, or it would be delayed, or I'd miss a period for a month, and then the next month I would just get it, and it would just be the same heavy, but what I thought was regular flow. And so at the age of 27, I didn't have my period, and I didn't think much of it, but I started to lose weight. And so I had eventually gone to the doctor because I was really, really pale, and I'd lost about 5 kgs. I couldn't eat much. I was literally living off Coca-Cola. So that was my go-to. I was feeling sick. I thought of the original things were, it's a stomach bug, or maybe I had a heavy night. And then I started noticing I'm not drinking a lot of alcohol, but I'm feeling like I've overdone it, like I've had a rough night out. So I noticed that once or twice, within like a month cycle, should I say. So I eventually went to a doctor and I explained my symptoms, and he asked me, when was your last period? And I said it was a few months ago. And he asked me as well, is that normal for you? And I said, yes, it is. It usually happens like that. And then after listening to me, he did ask me quite a few questions. He deduced something. He didn't tell me what it was, but he just said, okay, let's go have a look at what's happening. And we went into the with the observation part for him in his surgery. And he said, lie down on the bed. And this is usually what they do, where they touch your tummy and they ask, is it tender here? Is it tender there? And he did all of those things. And then he put some ultrasound gel on my belly. And I was like, maybe I have something, maybe there's an obstruction or something. And he put it on, and he didn't tell me anything. He was just looking. And then eventually he faces the ultrasound scan at me, and he goes, you're pregnant. Here's your baby. She's 4 months. And I'm like, what? Sorry, excuse me. So I was 4 months pregnant without, the only symptom in retrospect I can say is the morning sickness. I didn't think about the fact that I didn't have a period. According to being pregnant, I wouldn't have had that period for 4 months. And because it was so insignificant to me, I didn't think about it any further than that. It was just irregular periods. It is what it is, and that was it. And so when I did have my baby, I had a cesarean, and when they removed her, she had something called a cherry angioma, which was like a little bump on her head. And they realized that I had a ovarian cyst growing in my womb with her. Again, the surgeons that did my cesarean didn't say anything further than that. They were like, okay, it's fine. These things happen. It's normal. It's regular. Those words were used consistently when I was speaking to medical professionals. And so I didn't think much of it because I'm not in the medical background. So if you're going to tell me, that's fine. I'm going to believe you. So they removed the cyst after they had removed the baby, and nobody said anything other than that. It was normal, regular, that Bob's your uncle, done. And then in my 30s, around the age of 31, I fell pregnant with my second daughter. And when I was here in Abu Dhabi, in Al Ain. And when I had gone for one of my scans, then they'd said to me, it looks like you have some type of ovarian cysts that are also forming with your daughter. And I said, okay, that's weird. It happened before. And they were like, don't worry about it. It's nothing big. And they gave me medication, and the cysts dissipated, and that was it. And it was normal. So for both the pregnancies in my late 20s and early 30s, I was just being told, everything is fine, you're normal, there's nothing to worry about. After the age of about 34, 35, my period started getting more painful. And it was more noticeable that I was on my period. I couldn't do stuff. I didn't want to go anywhere. I was uncomfortable. It was a throbbing, I want to say throbbing and dull. It was like being poked or prodded, but not with something sharp. It was like, I don't know how to explain it, but it was a niggling type of pain, a lot of discomfort. You couldn't sit in a certain way. You couldn't stand in a certain way. The only thing that would help was just laying down. So that's when I started to notice my periods are getting a lot more painful. Again, I spoke with other people, older ladies than me. When I say older, I mean in age, to see if maybe it was something that, progressing towards. And I had asked a lot of people, and everyone would give me the same response. Yeah, these things happen. It's normal. Women go through a lot, just kind of ride the wave. So it was only in my late 30s that I start waking up and going, there's something wrong. There's something not adding up, but I just couldn't put my finger on it.
Mm.
So yeah.
Wow, okay. So yeah, a lot to unpick there in terms of, so it sounds like in terms of your experience, the healthcare professionals were always just very much, yeah, this is normal, this is okay, this is normal type of thing. But just you just had that niggling feeling just all the time that this can't be right. You know, speaking to other people, other sort
Yeah.
of women were saying similar, yeah, this is what happened, you know, it's seemingly very blasé attitude that this is just what happened, you just kind of have to get on with it.
Yeah, you grin and bear it. And I think for me, the biggest thing was the pain in my abdomen, in my lower abdomen, in my stomach, was a lot. But when it started to affect my back, where I couldn't really walk, and I had to get like a heat bag. I was like, like these. I don't want to say older woman, but like when you like in a snow kind of situation, and you've got your heat bag with you and your hot water bottles, and you've got your warm socks on. That's how I was all the time. I was always needing some kind of additional heat on me, on my stomach, but especially on my back, because it was like a pulling pain of my lower back. And again, nothing helped, no medication. And I never would take medication for my periods. In my teenage years and in my 20s, I started taking medication in my 30s to help me with the pain.
I see. Yeah, it was just sort of getting to that unbearable point. You didn't want to have to take medication for it, but it was just becoming unbearable. You were getting pain in your back.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, if you don't mind me asking, about sort of your mum? I know you've got sisters. Did they sort of suffer with painful periods as well?
My older sister had endometriosis, and she was
Mm.
also undiagnosed until her 20s. Has endometriosis. She has it. It's not gone or anything. She still has it. My mom, we've discussed this, and she had said to me that she, with her first pregnancy, so the first of the three girls, she had ovarian cysts, but she only had it in the first pregnancy and not after that. My younger sister has fibroids as well, and her fibroids have become so bad and so volatile. She's tried a lot of different medications, things that stopped because her flow would go on for like a month or over a month. And so I remember her having to be on different types of medication for that. She's still single. She doesn't have any children, but her gynecologist had said to her, the next steps we're looking at is a hysterectomy, because she had fibroids inside the uterus and outside the uterus, if I'm not mistaken. So she's actually on one of the many strategies or solutions that have been offered to her. So she's now had something called, I forgot what it's called, but it's like it's an aneurysm, something to do with a uterine aneurysms, UTA, something like that, where they attach like a stent to one of your femoral arteries, so either in your wrist or in your groin area, and they divert the blood from going into your fibroids to stop the growth of that. So she's had that done a few months ago, and she seems to, knock on wood, she seems to be doing okay for now.
Oh, that's good to hear. So your older sister with endometriosis, your mum had cysts like you did when she was pregnant, and your younger sister, she's also dealing with fibroids, which you've had to deal with as well. So when we had our chat, and yeah, I hope this works for your sister, because it must be difficult to hear that, the next step will be hysterectomy. Like you said, she's not married, she hasn't had kids yet. So it must be a daunting feeling to know that that could be the next step. So I really hope they're able to help her, definitely. So you mentioned when we had our talk that there was just one time where sort of you're coming out of the shower and you just felt the most severe pain that you've ever felt. You were sort of gripping onto the side of the bed. If you don't mind sharing what happened during that time.
I was 37 at that time, and it was the usual expectation. I'm on my period. Usually you get that little block of time when you get out of the shower before you start bleeding. And so, you've got to quickly dry yourself, get the towel, put your lotion and whatever your steps are of getting ready. And I was out of the shower. So I knew I had like a window period where I could get everything done. And I had such a severe cramp that I had to stop and hold on to the side of the bed And I still had my towel wrapped around me. And I remember because the towel was falling and I couldn't even reach for the towel. I just had to hold the bed because I was cramping so badly. And then I looked down and there was, my blood coming down my legs. And I was thinking to myself, the only other time I've seen something like this or experienced something like this was when I had miscarried years ago, before my second baby. And so I was like, okay, maybe I was pregnant and I didn't know about it, and I'm miscarrying for whatever reason, because the pain was quite intense. And I started like shouting out for my husband to come. And so I can't remember how we did this because we had two small kids. So I don't know if we had the nanny there. That part just is blank for me. But somehow I managed to, he helped me to get dressed and we sorted the kids out. He sorted the kids out. I was literally just sitting there in a lot of pain. And then I had to jump into the car and drive around to go to a hospital nearby or wherever that would take our insurance, because this was not normal. So to me, in my head, it had nothing to do with fibroids. I was miscarrying and I needed to go in and, clearly check what's happening and check if this was what was occurring, a miscarriage, and deal with it then and there.
Wow, a terrifying experience. That just sounds truly awful. And just to go through that pain, and like you said, you feel like you're miscarrying, so you just want to get to the hospital straight away and just sort of just see what's happening and just sort of get out of this pain. And
Yeah.
so what happened when you got to the hospital?
It was a lot of back and forth between different doctors. The journey itself was about a month to 2 months before I actually had my hysterectomy. I would like to say it was about 2 months. It started at the end of Feb, and I had my hysterectomy, pardon me, at on the 13th of May. So for about 2 months, I went back and forth with different hospitals. I had gone to one hospital and they'd said to me, you have a fibroid. It's nothing big. And then I went back and I said, I'm suffering and I'm in a lot of pain. And what they usually do is they just give you a lot of pain meds. And I kept trying to explain, I suffer with ulcers. I cannot take anti-inflammatories. So the pain meds you're giving me, it's not going to help. And they were like, fine, all you can take is Panadol, paracetamol. And I was like, that's not helping as much as it should. And so it was a back and forth of, I'm telling you, there's something big happening. And they were like, no, it's fine. It's normal. These are the things. And eventually it's quite unfortunate, but eventually it was my husband who had to stick up and go, there's something wrong and we need to find out what's happening. Then eventually, with us harassing the doctors and the nurses, I had gone for different types of scans. I did an ultrasound. I did an internal ultrasound, which was my first ever. I didn't have those even when I was pregnant. So that was a bit uncomfortable. My husband was there with me because we're Western, so hubby's there through everything, through childbirth and all of that. But because of where I'm based in the UAE, some of the staff were a bit uncomfortable with him being in the room. So it was very uncomfortable. I kept feeling like I had to raise my voice or harass people to be heard. And again, it went back and forth with, you have a fibroid, okay, you have some fibroids, and it's not that big, it's not that important, it's not that serious. And then eventually I was told, okay, well, you do have some fibroids and we will remove them. So I said, okay. And then I was given three options. One was them going in laparoscopically. One was them going in with a laser. And I said, okay, and what's the last option? And they said, oh, well, you don't have to worry about that. And I said, if there's a third option, I want to know. They said, well, that will only be if this doesn't work. And I said, you're going to cut my stomach and you're going to get these fibroids and you're going to try to do something. And they said, yes. I said, okay. The second one, you're going to take a laser. And then only at that point, they were like, yeah, did you have birth naturally? And I'm thinking that should have been asked before you gave me these options. And I said, no, I had a cesarean for both births. So they said, okay, well, that's going to be a bit difficult for the second option to work because we're going to go in through the cervix. And it's like, right, so what's the last option if these things don't work? And they said the hysterectomy. And I said, okay, done and dusted. Let's go for that. And they said, no, you're too young. I said, I don't think it's your decision. I think it's mine. And I said, can I ask you if you're going to go in and do a laparoscopic or which is called a myomectomy, I think. or if you're going to use the laser, whatever, and however else you're going to do this, will that stop the fibroids from coming back again? And they said, maybe, we're not sure, So I was like, which is the best way to make sure that this never happens again? Because the pain was excruciating. And they were like, a hysterectomy. And I said, then that's what we're doing. So again, that took a
Nerita,
few
can I just
weeks.
quickly, sorry to interrupt, can I just quickly ask, at what age were you when they were giving you these options? And yes, what
37.
age?
37.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Okay, yeah, so they were trying to avoid sort of going down the hysterectomy route. They wanted to go down sort of the other routes, but you wanted just basically the option that guaranteed that the fibroids didn't come back.
Correct. Yeah.
So yeah.
Sorry. So from there, it took about 2 weeks of trying to get approval from medical aid, because we had to get the doctors to approve it and motivate for it based on my age. Again, this was a conversation I had with my husband. It was our family planning, and he had to do a lot of the speaking on my behalf. He had to say, she wants this, she needs this, she prefers this. I was like the voice in the background. And they were more concerned about how he felt about it, even though it's not his body. I'm blessed to have a husband who treats me as an equal. And if I say this is what I want, he supports me. But in the same breath, it's my decision and it's my body. So yeah.
Wow. So again, it just sounds like you've gone through this routine again of, you went one place that said, oh, it's fibroid, it's nothing to worry about. Another person, you're just going back and forth. Another place that had some fibroids, and they wanted sort of to avoid going for the hysterectomy because of your age, 37, but you were just adamant you wanted the option that just guaranteed that the fibroids would not come back. So it just sounds like, and like you said, you had to really fight to be heard. And, they were more so listening to your husband than you. It's about your body, but they weren't really listening to you. So how did that feel? It just sounds like you were just dismissed a lot of the time. Your feelings weren't sort of considered in this. How was that time?
Very lucky to have a husband who's patient and supportive, because I was very frustrated. So I would shout at him more than anything. I'd be like, tell them this is what I want. Tell them, and I would get upset. And he was the person who had to bear the emotion of it because he was the communicator. He had to, whatever I wanted had to be communicated via him to these people in the medical field regarding my own choice. And it was based on, because of my age, I could still have more babies. Even though I had decided, which was, my choice, that I'm done now. I have 2 kids and I'm very grateful for them, but I don't want any more. So if a body part of mine, an organ that has served its purpose and has given me its best and has brought me these 2 children, I want to say thank you for doing your job and thank you for bringing my 2 children to life, for carrying them safely. But if you're sick now, we're going to remove you,
So it sounds like you've just been through such a frustrating time yourself and your husband, not being listened to, your husband having to fight for what you both wanted. Like you said, you'd had your beautiful family, you've got 2 beautiful daughters, and you didn't want to have any more kids, but the healthcare professionals were still just seeing you're 37, there's still a chance that you could have children. Overall, so you said you had sort of lots of scans, which there weren't. It wasn't a pleasant experience in terms of the scans that you had. Were they able to tell you how? I know you said they discovered multiple sort of fibroids. Do you know how many? What sizes were the largest ones? Did they give you that information?
They did eventually. We had, like, as I said, this 2-month period between the first painful period and then the hysterectomy. For me, it was quick. Those 2 months went by really quickly because my husband and I were on them all the time. We were phoning, we were harassing, we were phoning the medical aid, the health insurance, we were phoning everyone back and forth to get in, see the doctor, go back for the reviews and read the scans and so on. So in one of them, we asked to see the scans. And then eventually they showed us. So from 1 or 2, it became a few fibroids. And then they showed us some of it in diameter. But my husband asked a lot of questions, and they got quite annoyed with us. But my husband was like, what's this? What does this mean? Why is it this? How much does this weigh? What is the centimeters of this? And, what's the length and the distance and so on? And then he would ask them, he'd say, so this is not just one fibroid. These are a few now, right? So from the first time when you said it was one, now it's multiplied and there's quite a few. And they would just look at him like, yes, like, please go away kind of situation, because we asked a lot of questions, and they don't like answering. We didn't feel like they liked answering our questions a lot.
Why do you feel that was? Do you feel perhaps, I don't know, the dismissive nature of women's health? Why do you feel like they didn't like to give answers?
I definitely think that there's some stigma around our health and questions that we have based on it. I know that I avoid going to a gynecologist here. It's just uncomfortable, and the doctors are not supposed to judge, but I do feel very judged. I feel very uncomfortable. It's not a pleasant experience, and I do feel, and just in general, not only women's health, but just in general, a lot of the doctors that I've come across and that I have been to are very dismissive. They're very much like, okay, you've got a common cold, take this, take this, take this, do it 2 times a day, 3 times a day, thank you, and you get on your way. They don't explain anything. They don't, like, why do I have this? Why is this reoccurring? What are the symptoms that are causing this? When you ask questions, they get very agitated, and it's as if you're asking them for a lot more than they're willing to give. So even with the hysterectomy and getting to that point, as I'd mentioned before, it was a lot of phoning the hospital constantly. My husband had to escalate this from the gynecologist to the head of gynecology, to the managing director of the hospital, to I think we actually got all the way up to the CEO of the hospital having to phone us back and communicate with us, because there was just a lack of communication, a lack of basic common courtesy, and a lack of service, just a lack of and common decency. That was the biggest things, where we were asking, like, can we have a look at the scans? Why is this like this? It just is. Or just wait for your doctor. Or I don't know. A lot of, like, just being dismissed. A lot of indifference, should I say. It was like, I really don't care about you. I'm just here to do my job and get my paycheck, and be on my way. So it was very frustrating. And then also we were kind of known as the loud patients. We were very loud and bashful in the way we spoke, because, again, based on the color of my skin, there's a stereotype that I should be quiet. I come from a certain part of the world, and so I'm quiet and I'm submissive and I speak in a low tone. I'm South African. We fight for ourselves, we fight for our rights, and we're not rude, but we will get our point across, and we don't like injustice. That's the biggest thing.
I feel the passion coming from you, Nerita. I feel that passion. So as you've mentioned, you had to fight to get the hysterectomy. Your husband was very supportive. I'm so glad you had a really supportive husband who was pushing as well with you, asking questions, trying to find out information. And so you were eventually booked in for your hysterectomy 2022, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
So can you tell me about that experience? How was the recovery period afterwards?
So getting the information again from the doctor after the hysterectomy was, it was like pulling teeth. It was not fun. Also, when I had come out, and this I'd noticed, I went through the same thing when I had my cesarean in 2016. When I had come out, I was in a lot of pain. They had cut on the same cesarean scar for my first pregnancy, second pregnancy, and for the hysterectomy. So it was a lot of pain. There's a lot of scar tissue that gets left behind. And I remember when I came out in the recovery for the hysterectomy, I literally tried to sit up, and the nurses were pushing me back down. And I was like, I am in pain. I am in pain. So when they were calling me out of the anesthetic, I was in so much of pain. They had to call the anesthetist to rush over. And I think he kind of just gave me a shot of morphine or something. And then I remember going flat down and he was like, she shouldn't be in this much pain. And I was like, do something, do something. And so they put me back down. I was fine. But in recovery, the only thing I was given for both the pregnancy and the hysterectomy was paracetamol drip. No morphine, no ibuprofen, I mean, obviously for me, I couldn't take ibuprofen, but these things were not offered. It was basically paracetamol drips and saline. And I remember the nurse had said to me, you feel pain a lot, huh? And I'm thinking, lady, I have like 13 tattoos. I think I can manage pain. This is not pain management. So it was a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. I really struggled. I really struggled. With the hysterectomy, I struggled a lot more than I did with both my cesareans.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry to hear that. Again, it's sort of that dismissive attitude as well. Like, you know, you're in pain, you've just been through a major surgery, and it just seems like your pain is not being taken seriously. Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned when we had our brief chat, that during your C-section, your abdomen had sort of fused to your uterus.
Yes. So when I had to go back after 2 weeks for my checkup, then I had a chance to sit and speak with the head gynecologist, because in my recovery straight after the hysterectomy, she came in maybe once or twice, was like, hi, how are you? You seem fine. Okay, we'll check you out. And if you're okay, then we'll send you home in a few days. There was no real proper conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the 2 weeks, when I went back in for my checkup to check on the scar and, the operation site, then I said to her, so I need to ask you these questions. How much did you remove? Did you do a total hysterectomy? Because you said you were going to leave the ovaries? And she was like, yeah. And she, again, breaking communication, should I say, because she didn't speak a lot of English and I didn't speak a lot of Arabic. And so she was trying to explain to me in Arabic, and I was trying to understand it in English. And I was asking questions like, did you remove the womb? Did you remove the cervix? Did you only take out a part of the cervix? Did you only take out the top of the cervix? Because all of these things are important in leading normal day-to-day lives. And then only at that point, when I asked her, she said to me that my womb was fused to my abdomen, and my womb was filled with fibroids. The entire thing had fibroids in it. So again, from 1 or 2, it went to some, it went to a few, and now it was the entire thing within the space of 2 months. So either they were not watching and reading the scans properly, or I just don't understand how it could have grown so much in 2 months. Also, what they did was they put me on IV drips, iron IV drips, to make sure that my blood levels were ready for me to go into the theater before the operation. So that was very, very important, just to make sure that I didn't lose a lot of blood, and again, being anemic and so on. So yeah.
Yeah. Goodness me, you have been on quite the journey, Nerita. So after your hysterectomy, how long sort of did you take to recover? Did you have to sort of book quite a lot of time off work? How was the recovery afterwards?
So I was supposed to be off for 4 weeks. I only took 2 weeks. And I remember that was because of work stress. Even just taking 2 weeks, I was told off by one of my superiors, like, well, you've been off and you can't take any more time. So I did go back, and thankfully it was in the just after COVID time. So we were still getting back into face-to-face teaching. So we were doing a bit of hybrid at that point, and then going into face-to-face. So I was okay in the sense that I could sit and I could be at my table and I could teach online. So that was really by the grace of God that I managed it. It was a lot. Another thing, though, was there was no support from the hospital in regards to our a person who's had a hysterectomy, having any kind of loss, feelings of, any kind of like depressive state of mind in general. There was nothing telling me this is what you're going to be doing. It's the first time I had removed an organ of my body. There was no support to how I was dealing with everything mentally. A lot of the information I got was from Google about what would happen after the hysterectomy. I didn't get a lot of information from the hospital before the operation, during the operation, or after the operation. Most of my information has been Google. I know that's not the best, but they've helped me out. So thank you, Google.
Well, yeah, Dr. Google. Well, you say it's not the best, but what was your alternative option? As you mentioned, the hospital didn't really give you that support that you needed. As you said, you've just removed an organ from your body, and there wasn't that support of like what that will do sort of physically, emotionally to you. So how did you cope? Like, how did you the relationship with your body, did it change? Did you see yourself differently?
I was very scared because from what I'd read, when you have a hysterectomy, the rest of your organs now move to fill up the space that your abdomen had, and you end up losing the curve and the small of your back. And it's a silly thing. It's a curve. So I remember spending a lot of time staring at the curve of my back in the mirror before going, I'm going to miss you, but this is for you. This is for the whole body. I'm going to miss this part, but I got to do this for the rest of me to be okay, the rest of me to survive, the rest of me to live a good life. That actually reminds me, I completely forgot about this part. With the fibroids, as I'd mentioned before, I was anemic. With the fibroids, they were taking up all the blood in my body, and I was really pale in complexion. And I was under the assumption that that was because we work indoors. You're in the car and then you're in a building, and then you get out the building, you're in the car for a good like 15 to 20 minutes back in your apartment. So I assumed I was not getting color in my skin because I was out of the sun. I was actually pale. My teeth were thinning because of a lack of blood in my body. And so I had been told by I don't know if it was a doctor or a nurse, but somewhere along the line in this journey for the 2 months, I was told that my blood was so low in iron. It was so bad that I was a few months away from organ failure. And nobody had picked that up. So that was also
What?
one of the reasons. Yeah, that was also a reason that they put me on the iron drip, the IVs and stuff like that, to push iron into my body. I would be on like 6-hour drips.
Nerita, that's terrifying.
It
Wow,
was.
a few months away from organ failure.
Yep, because no other organs were getting blood and getting, the oxygen and the hemoglobin and all of those things that you get from your blood being healthy. It wasn't going anywhere else. It was going straight to the fibroids.
Wow, so yeah, it's just fibroids are so common, but they're just seen as just normal. It's just something women go through. But just look at the experience that you've had. You're months away from organ failure because the iron in your body was so low due to the fibroids.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. But we're stronger
Wow.
now. We're better now. And that's the other thing. Every time I think about it, and it does creep into your head, even as much as I said, I don't want any more kids and so on. There's always this little thought that kind of creeps in sometimes when you see other people having babies and you think, I won't go through that again. Or I wonder what would have happened if I didn't have the hysterectomy. Would I have ended up with more kids, without planning it or something? But what I usually do is I actually look at my hand and I look at the fact that I now have blood in my palms that used to be white before. And I know that this is the better option. And it means a longer life with my kids and a healthier one, a better quality.
I
So,
love that. I love that. Look at that smile as well as you say that. I love
yeah.
that. So you uh, got through the recovery from your hysterectomy now in 2026, and perimenopause comes knocking at the door.
Wow.
When did you start to sort of notice? Because many sort of women might be in the transition of perimenopause and not realize. So, how's this experience been for you? When did you feel like, this could be perimenopause? What symptoms have you been experiencing?
So again, my trusty friend Google, I was very much aware of the things that could happen after your hysterectomy. One of them was weight gain. I did gain a lot of weight. I gained 30 kgs over and above my healthy weight. So I was prepared for that. I wasn't happy about it, gaining the weight, but I knew it would happen. And then I was reading things about how you could onset your menopause. And as I did more research, I realized, okay, I have my ovaries. I shouldn't have any problems, but let me just research and let me just see what the symptoms are so I can keep an eye on it. So from the age of 37, 38, 39, I was like, okay, I didn't really pay attention too much. But when you start shifting towards your 40s, you start to, something in your brain switches, and then you're like, I got to live a better life. I got to do a lot of things to be healthier. And I'm getting older now. I got to take better care of myself. And then I started noticing things that I think happened from like 38. And it was small things like not being able to stand certain smells, a little bit of like the ear itching. Usually when your ear itches, you like rub at the bottom of your neck over here, and you're like, oh, okay, it's an allergic reaction. I'm allergic to something, or I'm getting sick. But it was me waking up in the middle of the night, having to like put my finger into my ear and going, this is not normal. What's going on here? And so those were the small things. Also the patience and the tolerance for not just other people, but just situations. I lacked that patience. I lacked that, there's another word I'm trying, that's the other thing, brain fog. You have a word at the tip of your tongue and then it's out the window. But this
Is it irritability?
Yes, I had no patience, I had no understanding. And something small would set me off. I would go from zero to hero. And the only thing that's helped me is actually acknowledging it now at the beginning, going, okay, you're getting irritated, you need to walk away. Because being a teacher as well, you have certain situations you're in where it becomes too much. And so I breathe a lot. I go and I hide in the bathroom and I do like a breathing technique type of thing sometimes. But now as I turned 40 last year, I noticed the hair fall, my hair's thinning, the night sweats that has just sort of happened. I mean, I have the aircon at 19 degrees, but I'm like, is it getting hot in here? And I feel myself getting clammy, and I know that it's the night sweats because of my external environment being at 19. Nobody else is feeling hot, and it feels like combustion from my chest and my face only. My hands are fine, my feet are fine. Food preferences, the smell preferences, things that I loved, perfumes, I can't use them anymore. They just kind of make me feel sick. And yeah, the irritability was the biggest thing. I just lack patience. There's no other word I can use. I just lack patience for nonsense, as I put it.
So no patience for nonsense. I like that. And yeah, the itchy ear one. This is a new one that I've heard. Another woman I was talking to said the same thing as well about the itchy ear, and I just didn't know that was a thing. So sometimes you just wake up and just have to get right in there.
Yeah, you feel like I know I'm doing it in the middle of the night where I'm literally shoving my finger in and I'm trying to scratch an itch and I cannot reach it. It's just like your entire ear just feels like you just want to scratch the entire thing. That's the other thing, the insomnia. That's been fantastic. I absolutely love it. I'm sure you can tell how excited I am about. I get 6 hours of sleep and that's it. It's quite unfortunate unless I'm drugging myself. And when I say drugging, I mean like taking an antihistamine that, because I'm feeling poorly or something, or unless I've had like a glass of wine or a beer or, something of the sort, that might assist me in sleeping for longer. But alcohol as well is not as fun as before. My tolerance towards it's just not the way it used to be. And I feel hung over a lot quicker. I understand I'm getting old. I'm not in my 20s anymore. So, we're not doing shots on the bar and stuff, but I just don't want to. And when I do have a drink, I actually start working it out in my head. Okay, so if I have a glass of wine, okay, 1 glass of wine, that means like another hour until I can sleep, kind of thing, until, it metabolizes in your body. And the sleep is disrupted. The sleep is not good. The quality of sleep I have for 6 hours is thankfully good, decent. I don't always wake up being like tired or anything, but I would like to aim for like a good 8 hours sometimes, especially like when I have the opportunity to have a lie-in. I'm still wide awake after like 6, maybe if I'm pushing at 7 hours. I'm awake. My mind is already awake, even if my eyes are closed. So that part is annoying. But I also have started napping during the day. So I love a good nap. And I like a good 20 minutes to an hour. I plan my days around my nap. Like if I have to go out in the afternoon, I'm going to be like, do I have enough time to get home, have a nap, and then go out? Or, am I sacrificing that time kind of situation?
That's great. No, I love a good nap. But it's good, Nerita, to hear that you're listening to your body, you're understanding the changes that are going on. Like you said, you'll sort of step away and just do sort of breathing exercises when you're sort of feeling that, the no patience that comes with it. It sounds like you're doing your research and you're doing what works for you, which is fantastic. And because as you've mentioned, you've had to use Dr. Google a few times. You didn't feel supported from the hospitals that you went to in terms of information. So during the times, your 20s, 30s, going through all of this that you've been through, which is just incredible, and just to see you glowing there, smiling, beautiful skin, hair, everything.
Thank you.
Do you feel, what kind of support would have helped you during those times? What would you have needed through all of this time?
Community support, women speaking about it, podcasts, learning about it. I'm learning more now in my 40s as a woman who no longer menstruates. I'm learning more about menstruation, the cycles, things that would have helped so much when I was a teenager. I'm obviously using this information for my daughters, as they grow, but it would have been nice to have this. Education is power. And like, I don't know if you heard of this, where on your first few days of your cycle, you should have a good piece of steak, a good chunk of red meat. And apparently that helps you with like the blood loss and the iron replenishment and so on. We weren't told these things as kids ourselves, we were not educated. And the support systems to be mentally, especially like you're losing a part of you, there's this what if situation going on in the background. This the recovery, the support that can be given as part of your recovery. Yes, physically you need a lot of help, but also mentally when you're going through issues, maybe even if it's not as bad as full-on hysterectomy, suffering with fibroids, maybe a support group would be there to help women feel like you're not alone, and this is what can be determined as normal, and this is something where you need to speak to a doctor. That's the biggest thing. A lot of women suffer with fibroids. It's only when you get the conversation started do you realize that it's something a lot of women go through. But unless you are the person to start that topic, no one else will. And I think also from our, the generations before us, our mums and our grandmoms, they kind of just were told the same thing I was told. It is what it is. Just move along, carry on. It's not a big issue. Just keep going. And that's quite unfair, because I can just imagine the pain and the discomfort that they went through. And that's the other thing, like having to work or having to take care of babies, or just, cleaning and cooking during your period. It's like, oh, you should be doing these things. These are the expectations. And no, there's no understanding that maybe you have polycystic ovaries, maybe you have fibroids, maybe you have something going on that's making your menstrual cycle a lot more painful than it should be. And maybe you should be resting. It's not being a drama queen or anything like that. It's because your body is physically not able to do all the other things while it's dealing with this internally. Oh, yeah.
I agree. That was very powerful. I love that. And so yeah, you mentioned just having community, having a support group around you of people who know what you're going through, and like, you know, if something doesn't feel right, you've got a community there to talk it through and have your back and have that support. So you mentioned sort of just educating yourself as well. You've done a lot of that. Like you said, you know more now in your 40s than you did in your 20s and 30s. So you've got two young, beautiful daughters. So how will you be approaching it with them? Will you be speaking to them? How will you approach it with them?
I do it all the time. In fact, I am that mum in our family group chat that sends 50,000 messages in a day. I try to educate them. You know, you try to educate them about religion, you try to educate them about healthy lifestyles. And I speak with my girls. My daughter is 13. She started menstruating. I don't know if she will like me telling the world that, but she started menstruating. But I speak with her, I tell her about what I went through. And I speak with my 9-year-old as well. She's a preteen. I didn't even know of this thing called a preteen until I had kids. So I speak with them and I tell her at some point, this is what's going to happen to your body. It's going to change. You're going to start to get smells under your arms and, you know, all these things. And we laugh about these things. We joke about it. But I always try to educate when I'm learning something, like the piece of meat, having a piece of red meat on your first few days of your period. As soon as I find out, I tell them. I always do that. I give them the information as instantaneously as I possibly can, whether they want it or not. I am there. I am lecturing. I am preaching for them, because I never had these things, and I do believe knowledge and education is power. It's really, really important. And the more you know, the more you can adapt to situations. So with my eldest, we were explaining this to her from the time she was 10 or 11. This can happen. You can see this. And we packed the bag. They like the idea of packing the bag, the little with the underwear and the sanitary towel and the wet wipes. That for them was the most fun. But if they took something away from it, of how to put it on and how to apply, you know, put the sanitary towel in and what to do and stuff like that, I'm happy. With my youngest as well, she also has one. She is still 9, but you know, the world we're living in, she has to be prepared for these things. It can happen as young as 9. I know of friends I have, again, via word of mouth, via speaking, bringing up these topics with people, even if they're uncomfortable. I learned that a few acquaintances, friends, colleagues have started their menstruation at the age of 9. And it was shocking to hear, but it was helpful so I can prepare. So I teach my kids as much as whatever I know, they know. I do obviously try to keep it sensitive to their age group, and I don't like to scare them too much. With my eldest daughter, I can show her, you know, the YouTube videos of what happens when you're having your period and stuff. My youngest, I won't scar her yet, but I really do. I want them to be prepared.
I love that. I love how you are getting them prepared and sort of you're talking about it as well, like a normal thing, because it should be just spoken about as a normal thing, not a taboo, not stigma. So I love the little bags you have like packed for them with the wet wipes and the pants to change into and things like that. That is wonderful. And as you said, just education and knowledge is so powerful. So a last sort of, I guess, word from you. So from people who are watching who are perhaps suffering with fibroids at the moment, their pain is not being taken seriously. You know, you've had to advocate for yourself, you and your husband. So what advice would you give to someone who is struggling right now?
Don't stop. You know yourself, you know your body. Harass people. I love it. I will harass somebody for something that is due to me. So if I need to harass the doctors until I get to be taken seriously and I get the type of attention that I deserve, I will. I still believe in that till today. Every time I go to the hospitals here, I think they cringe a little bit, like, oh no, here she comes. And that's okay with me, because if I didn't do that, there's so many different things that could have happened. One of them would be me not sitting here. But my dear friend Emma saying, I kind of remember this lady, because I could have lost my life. So harass, fight for yourself, keep pushing. It does take a lot of energy. You really have to nag the life out of people, but you do it because your life is worth it. You are worth it. and you are the only person that can fight for you. That's it.
Nerita, thank you.
Thank you so much.